about 70% cremation, 30% precast. And what was studied in this case was after meeting with the county and with the cemetery district and kind of understanding what they were planning at the time. I'm going to say that a couple of times because again, this was a 2023 study, things have changed since then. But based on what they were planning at the time, the study evaluated what it would take to get the state's portion of that site active and operational, and the assumptions about who would kind of do what. So importantly for the cost estimates, the study at the time did understand it was easy to be developing the public cemetery, at least starting that prior to the state constructing the veteran cemetery. And I mean physical work, not necessarily starting design, but there will begin. And the reason why that's important is, Matt gave an analogy of a house, and I think it would be helpful if we have a really long lot with the state's cemetery being in the back, the county being in the front, but there's also a gap. So most residential districts, if you're building a house, your utilities are pretty close to the house. In this case, they're pretty far away. So there's three components of work. There's what we call make-ready work, which is getting all of the utilities to the site for both the state and the local cemetery. There's the development of the local cemetery and the development of the state cemetery. So what the study assumed, again, based on conversations with the cemetery district and the county, is that the cemetery district would bring those utilities to the site. That would be assumed at their cost. They would bring utilities to the site. They would grade their own property. There's a portion of the state site they'd have to do some grading on in order to complete their own work, but primarily focused on their own pad. They would construct the access road, the bridges over Gypsum Canyon, the intersection improvements, the offsite water mains, storm drain, water, electrical communications infrastructure, the access road, all of that, in order to make the state site usable. And then the study also assumed that the cemetery district would be clearing the encumbrances of the property. There are a few things that run through that site that hinder development, specifically a couple of easements that need to be quitclaimed or eliminated or relocated. And then there is a easement for pipeline purposes that needs to be relocated to the edge of the property with a new easement. But at the time they were beginning to work on those, which was flagged in the study. And then what was assumed was that the state would come in and we would essentially take those utilities, we would grade our entire 100-acre cemetery site, supporting slopes within the 156-acre proposed parcel, and then begin phase one, which is a 34-acre initial cemetery. So that would include all the things you would expect in an initial build of a cemetery, bringing utilities throughout the site, from those points of contact, the drive aisles, main entry, access roads, landscape irrigation, storm drainage, fire water lines, telecom, storage tanks, almost 1,400 in-ground cremating plots, about 4,100 columbarium niches, the administrative building, public restrooms, maintenance building, and of course the ceremonial entrance and those sorts of things, with some perimeter walls, fencing gates to secure the property. The study, focusing in again on the state's portion of it, came to a project cost of $126 million. I will say a couple of big caveats to that number. Number one, by far the largest amount of that had to do with the site work and the grading, which I'm sure will come up in a second. Number two, these were 2023 dollars, and so whenever the state does an estimate, we always estimate not from just the date in which we do the estimate, but assuming when physical construction is going to come, and we are pretty conservative about estimating what the future costs are going to be. The cost to put a shovel in the ground today is probably going to be more tomorrow, and we are conservative in what those projections are. So there is about 3 years of estimation built into that. There's always contingency for unknowns. And at the time, because some numbers were built, CEQA had not been waived, and so there's a pretty huge environmental mitigation. I will say CEQA may be exempt, but NEPA, the federal version, still has to go through. But some of those assumptions and those costs are probably not going to be as relevant as they were, but $126 million was the estimate in 2023, assuming physical work would start nutshell, that's what was assumed, and hopefully that answers your question.
A lot of information there. I think, well, let's have the other, our other guest speak, and then we'll ask questions after that, if that's all right. Yes.
Sure.
We want to welcome Undersecretary Roberto Herrera. Welcome.
Appreciate the motion. Deputy Secretary.
I'm sorry, Deputy Secretary.
Just if you mind, I have a couple of opening remarks. So
Yes.
I'll tell you some things that the Chief Deputy Director has mentioned.
Is your mic on?
Okay, okay, cool. So, good morning, Madam Chair, Senator Valencia, and all the stakeholders and veterans in the room today. My name is Roberto Herrera. I serve as the Deputy Secretary of Veteran Services at the California Department of Veteran Affairs. I first want to thank you first and foremost, Madam Chair, for your continued leadership, dedication, and advocacy for the development of Southern California Veteran Secretary over the decade, and also for your continued support to initiatives related to behavioral health access to housing and other critical areas of need for veterans here in Orange County and across California. Further, I'd also like to recognize the continued leadership and steadfast coordination of local leaders in the veteran community within Orange County, as it continues to be one that represents the very best qualities in a community-based system of care that other regions in the state should revere and emulate. The quality of life of veterans and their families here in OC is surely elevated due to your all tireless passion and dedication. CAL's continued role in the development of the Southern California Veterans Cemetery is one of partnership and collaboration. As we continue down this path together, I want to emphasize the Department's willingness and dedication to always maintain an open channel of communication with local leaders and veterans in the community to be as much assistance in navigating the process that reflects your communicated needs and asks. The barriers and hurdles that this community has overcome to unite around an agreed site at Egyptian Canyons is one that everyone in this room should commend and celebrate. Further, the place in the Egyptian Canyon site on the National Cemetery Administration's conforming list is one that reflects a commitment from the department to continue walking with this community to facilitate the establishment of a Southern California Veteran Cemetery. However, this process is not one that comes without further work and advocacy ahead. As mentioned, the initial concept plan to develop the Egyptian Canyon site is one that is very, very broad and vast. CalVet, working with OCCD and DGS, is currently developing a revamped concept plan for the initial 100-acre plan release in late 2023. This effort was initiated by OCCD and supported through an investment from CalVet, independent of the Southern California Veteran Cemetery Master Development Fund, in order to find innovative ways to bring site prep and other projected costs down, while at the same time preserving many of the natural features and topography of the site to retain its natural beauty. Once finished, the revised concept plan will bring further clarity on design, project costs, and ultimate timeline. Although there's still hurdles to clear, I want to be clear, CalVet is committed to continue working with the OC community and its leadership towards the vision of the Southern California Veteran Cemetery. So, to piggyback off of DGS's comments, we are currently in the throes of working with DGS and OCCD to get away from but to reduce costs related to the site prep and work related to the site. I mean, obviously, $126 million project cost, and that's given the assumptions that DGS mentioned, the assumption that utilities and everything brought right to the property line, that there would be work prepared on the site beforehand. So there are additional shared costs that come with that that are not included in that $126 million. So the need for taking another look at the initial design
Assembly member, any questions?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Appreciate the context that you provided, the general overview of how massive this project actually is and how the impact of dollars really has slowed down this process. But I do again want to commend the incredible work of Senator Sharon Quirk-Silva. It was mentioned by Mr. Jay that the clarification of the CEQA process substantially does reduce the burden of cost in the project. Right? I also want to thank the City of Anaheim leadership here for their proactiveness to provide the utility line component all the way to the property line. So it goes to show that there are folks out there willing to invest the dollars needed to bring this project to fruition. One of the questions that I have is, what else is needed to reduce the project cost, number one, and number two, legislatively, specifically, what can be done to expedite the program and the project?
Yeah, I can start the first part. So in terms of the, as Kimberly mentioned, the study, so typically what happens in that process is we engage the same design teams and stuff like that. Number two, we're sitting down with parties who have been iterating on this, which is largely OCCD and the county, understand what their latest thinking is it merely a contraction of the site? Is it an alternative means of design? Those sorts of things. To the extent that there are the ability to do work once, it is cheaper. I'm not sure I assume the same amount of reductions as the county did, but it is definitely doing things once as opposed to doing something now and in the future, definitely cheaper. And so kind of working through those and then reconfiguring, for lack of a better technical word, the Calvet cemetery design concept to make sure that it is still in keeping with the federal standards and still honors ultimately what the state cemetery ought to look like, and then rerun the numbers. From there, it's a little bit a matter of what shakes out. Is it a material cost difference? Is it the minimism in places where leaning into one thing really does save cost, or is the minimism in others? And so that generally shapes out what the next steps could look like. But I will say, we've been in communication regarding this particular study. Calvet, which kudos to them for funding the study update. The money is literally on its way. We're making it get the consultants engaged. We would imagine that we have the update conservatively sometime in June.
Thank you for that. And to the second question, as a legislature, what can we do to help expedite the project further? And another question as well, going back to the CEQA component on the federal level, is there a plan to potentially estimate what the cost would be if the NEPA component is removed as well, and engaging federal partners in that regard? I know that's a much bigger challenge as well, but timing of the estimates, and it sounds like everybody in the state of California is on board. Why not be creative, as it's mentioned, and the school options?
Yeah, we do study, we do a roll-up of the cost, but we also have accurate breakdowns. I don't have in front of me the exact breakdown for what the NEPA component was and the assumptions, but yeah, it's quite easy to sort of break that out and say it would be on the order of magnitude X. And then I might defer to Roberto on that sort of, the legislative help, but I think just speaking off the cuff, a lot of it really depends on what that shared partnership could look like. As we mentioned, both by the county and by members, there are processes for everything. Most of those processes exist for a reason. They're designed to be very, very conservative. But all these projects are ultimately legislatively authorized, and so how they move forward is out there for environmental process. So I think there's ample opportunity to figure out the best path forward in that context.
I would say that the statutes that are already in place regarding design, acquisition, construction, and they're already in place. I think the big one would be the statute regarding Southern California cemetery require legislative action for spending for each budget year. So that would be to your question, is that what I want to do? That would be the first thing that would come to my mind.
Thank you. So, speaking to the legislative action, as we know, we are heading into a new budget starting in January, and we definitely want to make sure through the budget subcommittee 5 that we are able to move forward with the legislative budget action to actually start using these funds and start the project, the process. So as far as what we need to have in a budget trailer bill, I know that that is something that we want to have prepared now for January. If you could speak to that. And then, of course, the big question is, what are the steps that need to happen for the state to take ownership of this property? And if you can, a timeline. And then what I was hearing from Jason related to all of the things that have to happen from the county, I'm not sure if that's exactly what I've heard from the county, or if there's an agreement on that, or if this is new news. So I'm not going to bring up the county's people, but I just want to make sure we're not having two different pathways and we're not meeting in the middle somewhere, because I'm not sure if that's what I've heard from the county. Everything from the roads and utilities having to be prepared before the state takes ownership. So is this, because this could be new news and a big surprise, and if it is, we may be adding a lot of time here. So I guess from the county, without bringing you up, but cemetery, well, I will get it. Can I have Tim come on up as well? I'm sorry. Because otherwise we're just going around in circles here, and we really have to, I don't know if we're speaking the same language. So Jason, you said in your remarks, there has to be roads and utilities up to the project site before we can start. Is that what you were saying?
No, sorry, to clarify, I didn't say that there has to be a set. That's what the stuff assumed. So for the purposes of the 2023 study, there was assumptions made in conjunction, again, working with locals about what was planned at the time. Everything changes. But who was bearing what cost? The study was public. It acknowledges all of that. There is lines in the study that, of course, it would be not unexpected for the Secretary District or the county to want to have a negotiation or discussion about sharing costs for some of that neighboring work. But was careful not to say it must happen. I simply let the study assume. I will say, though, that historically, the process by which the state acquires property for projects, those are generally considered necessary preconditions. This is all fungible because it is, you can pick 100 projects and the lines in the sand get drawn slightly different places across the different projects in the grand scheme of things. But as a general rule, as a matter of process or principle, if you're acquiring property for the purposes of doing something, you generally have to be able to ensure that you have all the rights necessary to do that thing. And so if you're acquiring a property and you don't have access to it because it costs somebody else's property, or you're dependent on utilities being brought, those sorts of things, there's not really much of an opportunity to actually physically construct anything without those original estimates materially differing. And so that's usually the process. There are ways of solving that. It's not as if it has to be sequential in a draconian way, but that is generally the way the state's process is built, is securing the property and all of the rights to make sure that the thing you want to do, that you get the property for, spending money on design for, you actually have the ability to do.
So going to Cemetery District. Is this in line with what you have been thinking?
So, speaking on behalf of our team, the development team, which includes the county, the district has set amount of funds for district-associated costs associated with the build-out of our portion, our shared portion. When we've looked at our cost estimates, we've taken into consideration doing the utilities, doing the grading for both sites to prepare that for Calvet with the idea that either from the county's fund or from some of the legislative funds would cover those costs. The district, again, we're a small entity, we don't have, we've got about $50 million for the district's portion. So the goal is for us to work collaboratively again with the county and the state to make those funds available, because that's the logical next step as part of our first phase of development is the utilities and grading. And again, to the point made earlier by Senator Valencia, yes, the city public utilities is taking action and is moving forward on the utilities portion of it for the project, and we've been working hand in hand with them closely to try and get that action taken care of as soon as possible, because they've got projects that they have to work through on their CIP schedule. So we're trying to get them going in that manner, because having electricity and water on the site is very important for all the grading process and moving that forward. So that's probably the biggest portion of it that needs to move forward first. As far as Jason had mentioned the study, the 2023-24 study, yeah, that was based on looking at 100 acres on top and 80 acres, 90 acres below. We realized quickly, because of the cost estimates that we performed and Calvet or DGS performed, that was just not cost effective. We met on site, and I don't have the exact date, it was after a meeting that we had here at the county. We met on site with Undersecretary Portland and staff and talked about that problem issue. And they were so much to the conclusion that, hey, we've got this pad that's out there, why can't we downgrade the grading process to utilize that first pad and subsequent pads below it and wait on pad 3, would it be part of their 10-year or 10 phase 40 or 50 or 100-year plan. And that's truly how cemeteries need to work. And so we knew that was the case, but yes, they had to modify their designs. All along the process, our team has made assumptions on what would be where as far as buildings. We're not, our architect isn't designing Calvet's buildings and any other factors that are above ground. They've been focusing on the geotechnical and grading utilities that will serve both sites, and doing that collectively, as we mentioned, so that we have cost effectiveness.
All right, so we've had a lot of information. We are now at 11:43, and I think for the people who are tuning in or here in the audience, I think there is a lot to digest. But I think the good news is that Calvet, the Cemetery District, and the county have been meeting on the regular, and even though there is a large price tag, there's also been solutions that have been brought forward to bring down this price as long as we're working together in a shared way. And I think that is the point that I'm hoping to drive home, that if we work together, there's opportunities to reduce costs, to speed up the process, and to get the first phase. And it might have been lost on the audience that this is a phased project, and that in order, yeah, we're not doing this. Thank you. All right. We know that there is urgency, we know that there's frustration, and we know that people are being timed out because of the age they are. We understand, Nick, and we have done everything we can in the steps. The governor supports this project.
Please get the governor supports you. That means the organization our commander in chief. It's just that simple. Please answer that. There is gold star mothers and their children for all of us. Please answer that. Please.
we are going to close this part of the hearing. We're going to thank the Cemetery District, the county, Calvet, and DGS. As it has been discussed several times, we are part of the team to move this project forward. I understand, I see some of the faces of friends that I have worked with here. I'm not going to start naming names, but there's an 89-year-old veteran here from the city of Fullerton that is desperately wanting to see this. We are trying to do our best to speed it up as much as we can, but we also know there's costs, there's processes, and we will continue to work together to do what we can to move this forward. That being said, thank you to this panel. And now we are going to open it up for public comments. If you wish to make a comment, we are going to follow the Anaheim, City of Anaheim. It is 30 seconds, and you'll see a green light start to blink. I think that's what that's here, right? And again, your name and your position, and just a very short 30 seconds or under to make a comment regarding this Orange County Veteran Cemetery. We're not going to use the cards. We're just going to speak and move forward very quickly. All right?
Hi, everybody.
Yes.
My name is David Carmel. I'm a state member for American It sounds like everybody's on board and ready to move forward. And then what I heard from Calvin was a filibuster. It wasn't an answer to us. I'm leaving this meeting confused. We all want this. We didn't get any answers from Calvin. We, as legislators, as a veteran, we need to put in the heat and make sure that Calvin is on board. I didn't get any answers today. I'm leaving here confused. And Calvin, shame on you. You answered to us and you answered to the veterans. Thank you. Shame on you.
Yes, my name is David Lopez. To my friends, I'm known as Bulldog. I'm a retired law enforcement officer, a retired high school teacher, and I came in here with an array of hope, but I'm walking out here depressed. Because I've heard so much rhetoric, some bullshit that I've heard.
Alright guys, we are going to stay with being respectful. Otherwise, I'm not going to hear public comment. Alright? I get that. Nick?
I am Bobby McDonald, 3rd District Representative for Wagner's office, Supervisor Tom Wagner, and member of Valor, and member of the Buffalo Soldier. I just want to say that I went to a function a couple weeks ago down in Calvet in San Diego where you attended, and so did Archuleta, Senator Archuleta. And one of the things that came out of it, both of y'all spoke, was Calvet said they were connected, protected, and respected all their veterans. I hope they continue to do that. Thank you.
Hello, Assembly members. Thank you for hosting this hearing in Anaheim. My name is Natalie Rubalcaba. I'm a council member who has the honor of serving for the city of Anaheim. And we are so grateful to have this Veterans and First Responders Cemetery in our city. And as you know, we unanimously supported this at the dais, and we look forward to working with the state and the county to continue to make sure that our veterans have a place here in the city of Anaheim to rest, and their families have somewhere local to come and visit them. And like I mentioned, our first responders also, the fact that we're able to incorporate both is a big deal for the city of Anaheim. And I know some of you veterans here today feel that you're leaving here hopeless, but I want to take a moment to instill an opportunity of hope here and let you know that the people here in the city of Anaheim who are leading and governing are working closely with Assemblymember Valencia and Assemblymember Quirk-Silva, who has been advocating fiercely for this cemetery, which was so distant a long time ago, where we were in Irvine Anaheim, and then it was rejected and brought here to Anaheim. So I just want to thank you for doing this and let all of our veterans here know that we in Anaheim support the Veterans Cemetery and will continue to advocate for its swift implementation. Thank you.
We're not doing this. Thank you. All right. We know that there is urgency. We know that